Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
What helps you to turn toward God in repentance? I think for me, it would be taking time to sit with something uncomfortable, even something uncomfortable that I had done, getting advice, and lots of prayer. For David, it was to build an altar, which we wouldn't necessarily do today, as an altar would be a specific place of worshiping God. And like we talked about yesterday, because of Jesus, we can worship God anywhere. David built a few, but there's one in a certain location that we're going to focus on today. Can you guess which one? If you guess Mount Moriah, you would be right. Hey, this is Jen. We are talking this week on the Bible for Busy People about songs of ascent, which were sung by pilgrims on their way up to Jerusalem to worship God. And today we're going back to before Solomon built the temple, because I just felt like they fit better with the songs of ascent that we're going to read through today. In 2 Samuel 24, it says that God incited David out of anger to take a census, and David goes about counting all of his fighting men. Now, it's interesting because in 2 Chronicles 21, it says Satan was the one to incite David to take a census. Those two things sound conflicting, but from my research and study, I think we can surmise that God allowed David to take a census to let David's pride become clear. I almost picture it, as a mom, like God allowing it out of frustration, kind of like an exasperated parent giving into a child who won't stop, demanding candy and allowing them to face the consequences of a stomachache. Because David goes through with it, counting the fighting men of Israel to kind of get a sense of his own perceived power, he is then stricken with guilt. And all of the Israelites are stricken with a plague from God. In 2 Samuel 24, verse 15, it says, "So the Lord sent a plague on Israel from that morning until the end of the time designated, and 70,000 of the people from Dan to Beersheba died. When the angel stretched out his hand to destroy Jerusalem, the Lord relented concerning the disaster and said to the angel who was afflicting the people, 'Enough, withdraw your hand.' The angel of the Lord was then at the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. When David saw the angel who was striking down the people, he said to the Lord, 'I have sinned. I, the shepherd, have done wrong. These are but sheep. What have they done? Let your hand fall on me and my family.' On that day, Gad went to David and said to him, 'Go up and build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite.' So David went up as the Lord had commanded through Gad. When Araunah looked and saw the king and his officials coming toward him, he went out and bowed down before the king with his face to the ground. Araunah said, 'Why has my lord the king come to his servant?' 'To buy your threshing floor,' David answers, 'so I can build an altar to the Lord that the plague on the people may be stopped.' Araunah said to David, 'Let my lord the king take whatever he wishes and offer it up. Here are oxen for the burnt offering. Here are threshing sledges and ox yokes for the wood. Your majesty, Araunah gives all this to the king.' Araunah also said to him, 'May the Lord your God accept you.' But the king replied to Araunah, 'No, I insist on paying you for it. I will not sacrifice to the Lord my God burnt offerings that cost me nothing.' So when Araunah the Jebusite tries to give the land to David, David insists on paying for it as a true sacrificial offering to God. Pilgrims on a journey to Mount Moriah would have been familiar with this story. Again, I truly believe that along with their songs, they would be telling stories, they would be reflecting back on the history of their people, and they would be considering those things as they made this difficult journey. And they might have taken it as a story to remember what happens when our pride gets in the way. It also reminds us of God's justice and mercy, and that it's up to us to trust and obey God. That is our job to do. God has good intentions for us, and God is the one who fights our battles. When we seek to gain power for ourselves or to do things on our own strength, God sometimes allows us to face the consequences in the way of a loving parent. Now, again, these were people who faced the consequences of David's sin, and that is painful. That is something to note and pay attention to. And I can't explain it. I can't explain away the fact that so many people died because of David's sin. I think this would have been a reminder to the people who were to follow, including the pilgrims, of the consequences of our sin, that it affects not just us, but other people. And I think it would have potentially been a time on their journey to examine themselves, to confess, and to move forward with hope. Psalm 129 says, "They have greatly oppressed me from my youth," let Israel say. "They have greatly oppressed me from my youth, but they have not gained the victory over me. Plowmen have plowed my back and made their furrows long, but the Lord is righteous. He has cut me free from the cords of the wicked." God hates oppression and he hates injustice. May all who hate Zion be turned back in shame. May they be like grass on the roof, which withers before it can grow. A reaper cannot fill his hands with it, nor one who gathers fill his arms. May those who pass by not say to them, "The blessing of the Lord be on you. We bless you in the name of the Lord." Remember how much the Israelites have been through at this point. Remember how much they've been oppressed. They rely on the righteousness of a God who promised them hope and a future. So they rely on the promise that oppression is not the end. Psalm 130 says, "Out of the depths I cry to you, Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to my cry for mercy. If you, Lord, kept a record of sins, Lord, who could stand? But with you there is forgiveness, so that we can with reverence serve you. I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in his word I put my hope. I wait for the Lord, more than watchmen wait for the morning, more than watchmen wait for the morning. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, for with the Lord is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption. He himself will redeem Israel from all their sins." This is a song of contrition. While the author shows surrender, I like the way it's phrased, that we wait on a mercy that we can count on from a faithful and compassionate God. And lastly, we have a psalm from David, Psalm 131, which says, "My heart is not proud, Lord, my eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me, but I have calmed and quieted myself. I am like a weaned child with its mother, like a weaned child I am content. Israel, put your hope in the Lord both now and forevermore." I don't know when he wrote this song. I don't know if it was concerning the census or the plague, but I do think David has just been made aware of his sin enough to relate to God in such a way that he was humbled, he was grateful, he was hopeful, and he was expectant for himself and for his people. So how do we keep turning to God with humility and hopeful anticipation? That's what I get out of these series of the Songs of Ascent today. That is something to be admired in the Israelites who had been through such injustice, so much oppression, and they continued to seek God. They continued to make their way up the metaphorical mountain, but also the literal Mount Moriah on their way up to Jerusalem. Thanks for chatting with me today. Tomorrow we'll talk again about the Songs of Ascent.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.
Thanks for listening. We just wanted to take a minute to let you know that just like you and your family, Purposely is also part of a family, the Krista family of ministries. Krista helps kids and teens learn and grow in their faith at King Schools and Miracle Ranch Camp. And Krista shares Jesus with people in the poorest, most remote places through World Concern. Krista Senior Living is a community of love and care, and Krista Media is a place of hope on the radio. God is changing lives through these 5 ministries, and Krista is on mission to share the good news of Jesus. To learn more, visit Krista.org.